It's another Seasons Saturday. Followers of the series by now realize the most important part about watching the Variety Films 3D Seasons series is getting an appropriate snack. I heard McDee's was selling socks, so I had to check it out. Yep, just what I always wanted. Socks mixed in with my food. Well, we just might need to put those on as we venture into the wet and rainy Rhode Island seasons. The state of Rhode Island, I learned today, is not actually an island. And until very recently, the state's name was actually Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. They changed it due to the rising cost of syllables. It's amazing the influence of inflation has on our landscape. Here is the fort where Washington kept the British from seizing Mobil gas. Fuel is important in war, and horses don't run on compliments. It's a fantastic 3D view. The sensation of heights is amplified by having these stairs and wooden structure as reference points to show how far it goes down. I've remarked in the past how the sensation of heights can get lost in 3D if there's nothing connecting the ground to the camera. Just the reference is what sells it. Now, this water is beautiful and is being shot with a proper 3D camera, but fountains are the undoing of anyone who has ever tried to make 3D using two unconnected cameras that have no frame locking capacity. At first glance, the water might seem like its motion will just blur out any inconsistencies between the views, but the eye detects every little drop. It's so magical to see it done here perfectly. But if you tried to film a fountain in 3D using, say, two cell cameras and combine them later, you'll likely find that it looks okay, but your eyes begin to ache after about a minute, and it won't be obvious why. The eye does not like a mismatched image, even in the tiniest details. It is aware of each and every one of those little drops. Yet, curiously, the eyes can also be weirdly forgiving to mismatched focus and even light, which is good because in natively shot 3D, unless you're using infinite focus, it can be difficult to get both eyes to match light and contrast, especially if you are filming something at an angle. This is a nice moment. I'm constantly bringing up my love of stereo reflections. They're like little ghosts in the landscape. They have a surreal quality, showing us images and places they should not exist. Here, we are looking down in a shallow pool, yet we are seeing up deep into the sky at the same time. Just a contrast of understandings. It seems to me that the quality of the image has gone up considerably as the Seasons series has progressed, and focus tricks have also become more prominent. I'm guessing Variety has collected enough wood in Minecraft to upgrade the camera. These are beautiful flowers. I really wasn't able to showcase the best of the flower shots in my slideshow because my slideshow starts to get a bit smudgy if the 3D is too exciting, as it is here. One of the things I've come to love about watching the Seasons series is how the lack of narration instills both a meditative mood and a mind that just wanders everywhere. For example, these flower gardens brings to mind a place called the Peace Gardens, which sits on the Canada-US border, with entrances on either side of that border. Now, maybe things have changed. I certainly hope they have. But there was a time where on the Canadian side, you could get into the place with little more than a smile and a wave. But you couldn't get out unless you had a passport or a very specific combination of documents. So this created a small but steady stream of unsuspecting Canadians who would haplessly wander into this Kafka bureaucratic trap. Arrest, fines, vehicle seizures, and even having your kids spending time in protective custody while it all gets sorted out, all for taking a scenic detour. made all the more ironic as it's in a location where there's hundreds of miles of open land where you could lead a marching band to the other side. When paused, this waterfall looks like it's frozen in a thin layer of ice. It's like a window shot. You see the stereo image of the surface of the water and the rocks below, which seem to have their own 3D profile. It again really brings to life how things can live right up against each other, yet exist in completely different worlds. The experience of being among the immersed rocks is completely different to that which floats on top. The wonder of watching things in stereo, and sometimes it's a hindrance too, is seeing how things exist in proximity to each other. Our memory is a sandwich maker. It likes to squish things together, give it a broad label, and call that a day. This is a park, yet that tree stands apart from the rest. Am I looking at a park or am I looking at that tree? And there it happens. By the sheer fact that I've labeled something that tree, I've split the picture into two impressions. And creating that separation is a bit of mind work. In every frame, the mind wants to see it all as one thing and give it all one big label. But in 3D, you end up with all these multiple objects competing for attention. So you search around telling yourself, oh, that's a that, and that's a that. In a way, you kind of end up like a kid playing with one of those barn animal toys. Cows go moo, sheep go baa, farmer goes, get the hell off my land. I found the process both exciting and exploratory, but I can see how others might find it a bit distracting or even fatiguing. It's much easier to enjoy with something slow-paced like this Rhode Island Seasons nature walk. Now, like the other Seasons disc, this one also has a bonus pre-show. The disc gives us birds of New England. At first, I was a little unsure how this would go. It is difficult to get a good 3D picture of birds in their habitat. Birds are skittish, so even on the ground, you can't get too close, so zooming is key. But a telescopic stereo rig is not an off-the-shelf consumer product. But Variety gets around this limitation by using dead birds, complete with cobwebs. Why don't they dust this museum? There is something fascinating about seeing a bird in a frozen state because you just never get up in a bird's face normally. And I think it might also be that I am so accustomed to the quick jerking movements of a bird that looking at them puts me in a state of expectation. That thing is supposed to twitch at any moment, so this up-close and intimate look feels not even temporary, but momentary, a fragile piece of time that's bound to shatter at any moment. And 3D helps maintain the experience of seeing it as an animal rather than a mere picture. It's got a head and a neck and limbs, and any one of that can change at any moment. Look here at these beautiful little puddle reflections that, again, you're only going to see in a natively shot 3D film experience. Chickens are such a curious thing. As food, they are generally listed as kosher, but poultry fits well within the pattern of foods that Moses advised to avoid. Just in general, these are either meat eaters, scavengers, or bottom feeders, or things that tend to scavenge in the dirt. The chicken hits these categories, yet it's never quite explicitly named, though there are people out there who argue there's a passing reference to things that walk on all fours that they believe is actually referring to toes, not legs. That would make the chicken then something to avoid while eating. But exact definitions are all lost to time, and frankly, were probably meant to be. But it does make for a good discussion. Is it better to follow the letter of instruction or the intent of an instruction? I suppose it might depend whether you see your God as punitive or protective. If it's the later, then you would want to understand what that law is trying to prevent, as that is ultimately where the harm will come from. So you're not worried about getting hit with a lightning bolt, you're worried about dying of explosive diarrhea. To that end, you could further take this argument that developing chemistry and biology is a truer fulfillment of the old law than preserving an ancient cookbook.